Oh, hello there guys, welcome to another EU5 video. It might be one of the last EU5 videos without actual game footage, because on the 31st October I'll be able to release my first video from that game. Today I would like to touch a topic that was brought many times on my channel by your comments. You keep asking me, Zlewikk, what do you think about AI doing absolutely nothing in these time lapses? My responses even got brought to the Reddit, and Reddit as well as Paradox Forum are just on fire because of this time lapses, because the community, the most engaged community, because these are the people on these two groups, the most engaged community got divided. Does it mean that the AI is complete dog shit? Or why is it happening? Or maybe this is fine, the game is still fun. I'm gonna try explaining to you how AI was for the past 2 months of me having the access, how it changed over that time, and what's the state of the AI right now, and will it get better by release? Okay, so first of all, what's the whole noise about? This is a time-lapse from the Wonder Productions. That's the time-lapse that was posted a while ago, and it was from the 16th October patch. So the first patch on which the creators could start recording their actual videos for the release. Let's take a look how it looks like. It's 30 seconds. What you'll see here is, if you look closer, especially on the bigger nations, you'll see that small things just keep popping up and disappearing. These are the constant civil wars that the AI just couldn't handle efficiently, and that was definitely one of the biggest bottlenecks for these AIs to, expand, declare wars, because they had to constantly fight their nobles, most importantly than their nobles. Let me just also stop at the end. So that's something that, for example, was already fixed in the patch from the last Wednesday. So that was from the 22nd October. What also do you see? You'll see that AIs for the first more or less 200 years, they are not bad at unifying the region. Just take a look at how France expanded and united the region. Take a look like Hungary expanded, united the region. You can also take a look how Tunis and Morocco are slightly expanding, and so is Mamluks, so are Eretniks, and so is Kiev, Novgorod, and Moscow. All of this for the first 200 years. Also Sweden, Bohemia, all of this slightly expanded in the first 200 years. The main problem that is being noticed that then for the next 300 years, look, not that much happens between this moment and this moment. That was the main feedback from the people. There are some changes, you notice them, but not that much happens in Europe. Because it's also worth noting that this issue is more importantly for Europe. If you look at Africa, look how Africa changed. Africa changed like hell in this period.
Before we go further, make sure to check sponsor of this video, eneba.com, where you can get thousands of games on various platforms, as well as subscriptions like Spotify at a discounted price. By clicking the link in the video description, you're gonna also support the channel. Let's get back to the video.
That's the first time-lapse. Then the second time-lapse was released by Flying Dutchie. That was on the new patch. So on the patch that was released on the 22nd October. That patch was most importantly fixing the issue with the civil wars. So that should give the AIs a bit more resources, right, to expand. They don't have to spend so much time fighting the civil wars. You still see civil wars here and there if you look closely, but definitely much less, and not as hurting as it was in the previous time-lapse. You also notice that the AIs are expanding a bit more. Just again, you see France is right now more likely to go into lowlands, as well as Catalonia. We've got bigger Hungary going more into the Balkans, a bit more successful Ottomans. We've got Sweden also going more into here into Novgorod. We've got much bigger Moscow for sure as well. But besides that, again, same problem. First 200 years, everyone uniting the regions, and then for the rest of the game, something happening, but not as much as you would expect from EU4. And again, you also see that again, the Africa is changing much more than Europe is. So that's the same pattern. So a few things that you notice there. First 200 years, AI is slowly expanding, uniting the regions, which I think this is how the first 200 years should look like, right? Up to 1550 or something, AI is slowly uniting the regions. What doesn't happen after that is see AI is using the new advances to expand even more, to take vast amount of the lands, to replicate kind of historical, unifications on the regions and bigger nations, and also what we've seen in EU4. In EU4 it was maybe sometimes too much of expansion from some of the AIs. Second thing that you'll notice is there's border, which is with this granularity of the locations, unfortunately expected. Maybe at one point they're gonna fix it. And third of all, Africa is doing better in these time lapses, unify-wise, than Europe is. Now, before I go into my experience, you have to answer yourself one question when you're looking at these time lapses. Is it the AI not expanding because it's dog shit and it cannot play? And it's just staying AFK, nothing really happens, nothing ever happens from this AI, they just pause and do nothing? Or the AIs are playing so well, they cannot expand against each other, which means the AIs will also pose the same challenge to the player, which will not be able to expand so efficiently into them, because AIs themselves struggle to expand against each other. Or maybe it's something in between. I'm gonna try answering this for the rest of this video, so you can also get better understanding of what is the actual status of the AI, what are the current issues, and what were the issues of the AI in the last 2 months. Because I also got comments on Reddit, probably people that never watched my video, so Zlewikk, why you never said the AI had problems? Whenever I had problems with the AI, and you'll see in the next probably 10 or so minutes, I was saying that in my videos, what was my feedback about the AI, and a lot of was already fixed. Many elements were much worse. Let's just see that. Okay, so first of all, my Ottoman campaign. When I started this campaign, I had like 60-80 hours of experience. I was a very noob, and that was when we received the access again in around mid-August. Well, let's take a look what was happening there with the AI. First of all, the AI was a challenge for me. I was a newbie player, but they're also doing a lot of stuff to make it a challenge. Biggest challenge for me were the Mamluks, because they had a huge amount of the levies that were like something I couldn't contest very long. So if you watch my AAR video, you notice that for the first 100, 150 years, I actually had only these lands. Just playing tall and a bit of Balkans. Just playing tall, trying to outscale the Mamluks with the amount of the levies and waiting for the professional armies. The issue that we had also then that the standing army was so unbalanced, it was so much better than the levies. I just needed like 5-10,000 of the standing army to just destroy 20,000 of or even more thousands of Levy stacks at once. So that was a big issue. You could very easily destroy AIs as soon as you rushed down the advances for the standing armies, got manpower, recruited the armies, you could stomp any AIs very easily. That was a huge issue because the discrepancy between levies and the standing army. Another issue back then is you could piece out anyone for money. So let's say there was a hack box and let's say I wanted to attack Bulgaria and they had alliance with Hungary that I couldn't defeat because they're too strong. I could just send money to Hungary to piece them out 12 months after the war starts because you cannot separate piece earlier unless you fully siege someone. So that was an easy exploit. Same for the coalitions. The coalitions I could piece it out day one for just money. Didn't make sense, but it made also my gameplay very easy versus the coalitions, AIs and bigger boxes. AIs lacked a lot to hackbox. Big alliance chains were a problem, but again I was solving that by simply sending money to fuck off. Another issue is that AI spammed forts in a lot of locations, not everywhere, but in big chunk of them. So the main challenge to conquer faster and expand faster was taking care of these forts. But the slider for the forts was at the minimum for half, so they were still paying for these forts. I couldn't drive them up until like mid-late game. When I got bigger armies, I could start rushing it. Why I started this campaign 1805 is because 1806 is because my game looked like this. Start war, do objectives to focus siege, so my stacks would go to the forts. Assault, 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 assault with 5 stacks. unpause for like 10 days, and go for another location. And assault, micro hell because of amount of the forts. That wasn't fun, and you'd hate this game back then. That was just 2 months ago. Another thing that is actually interesting, that mid-sized countries, like the ones that you've seen on the time lapse, like Poland having just Poland, or Bohemia having Bohemia plus a bit, or even Hungary having Hungary, these were very challenging wars against these guys, especially in the mid-late game, because they were having a lot of standing army, and the issue back then is that the battles were really fast, and of course AIs know everything. You don't know everything. You have fog of war. So AIs, what were doing, they were, in the moment they saw an opportunity to attack you on a fort with bigger armies than you do, they could overstack, they would do that. And they were winning battles with me very often, because the battles were so fast you don't have time to reinforce. You didn't have time to reinforce back then, because it changed later. I will talk about this. So I had a lot of times when I had just to reload the save, because I was destroyed by the AIs leveraging their speed and how fast the battles are. Another issue of the AI back then was that it did not colonize almost at all. It kept trying to colonize lands of the other nations, didn't really try going to the new world. So for example, as Ottomans, I had 70% of the new world colonized for myself. After my Ottomans campaign, another patch came where I played as Orissa into Bharat. So there were some adjustments to the AI already on the general balance, like the standing army was it was nerfed by levies getting stronger, especially in the early ages, up until like mid-age of Reformation. The levies were totally could compete with the standing army. Issue of the standing army is the size of regiments. It was like 100, then it's 200, then it's 400, etc. Levies have just 1,000, right, of the regiments. So in my Orissa campaign, it was huge of a challenge to fight because of the two reasons. I like the guys in south of India, the Hindus. They're all allying each other, so like 4 or 5 countries. So I wanted to defeat one, I had to go after them. And then I had Delhi that did release out of subjects, but they kept them as the subjects. So I wanted to fight going north as Orissa. I had to fight Delhi and all of their subjects. So both of these two kind of the wars that I was fighting were hard as hell, like hundreds of thousands of people were dying, like in India. And I had to micromanage a lot to fight them. Another thing that they changed was you couldn't piece out for money. And coalitions were much more aggressive declaring you. As soon as there was a coalition, they would just declare on you. So in that campaign, I was in constant wars. Truce ended, coalition declared. Truce ended, coalition declared. And truces are shorter in EU5. So every 7 years or so, I had to fight the coalition and just try to survive. And that was for like 100 years, even 200 years. That I had to constantly roll between that. I united in like 1600s. That's when it stopped. I still had coalition back then. It was just smaller and it wasn't declaring because of that. So that was hell. And you know, again, the battles were so fast, you couldn't reinforce. So I was again often losing battles, sometimes even reloading and autosave, because it was such a challenge with the amount of the levies, because I had to face between 100 and 200,000 levies each time I was declaring the war, or I was being declared on. I forgot also to mention that back then and also on the Ottoman campaign, the levies work a bit different than now, meaning that if you wiped levies or your levies got wiped, you could recruit them immediately. So AIs was using that to just keep bringing more and more and more even if you're wiping them. I learned that in this campaign, so I also started like consolidating, then removing and re-getting levies. Not good experience, you wouldn't like that, guys. Just FYI, that was the experience back then, it was changed later in one of the patches. On that patch they introduced zero maintenance sliders, so all of the AIs were paying 0 for the forts, which created a very bad cycle, where they spent nothing on forts, so they build forts everywhere because they have money. But when the war starts, they're not paying for these forts, so the garrison on all of these forts is 0, and then it slowly grows. So you had whole India building one big fort. In some other regions it was similar, but sometimes more, sometimes less, but most of the locations were forts. So my wars at some point looked here like, I declare, Early game it wasn't that, right? Because it took a few hundred years for AIs to build these forts. But mid-game wars were like declare, same as in the Ottoman campaign, select objective to focus siege, and just rush force. In the first 3 months, getting most of the forts rushed. After like 4 or 5 months, the garrison was recovered in most of the forts. Also, terrible experience. They fixed on this patch AI colonizing. That's not like colonization in EU4 that's super fast. It's very slow. Initially, it's usually like Castile or Portugal. After like 200 years, there's maybe a bit Caribbeans colonized, maybe some Canada, not too much. Where the colonization actually kicks off faster second half of the 16th century, even 17th century, and only around the end of the game, the new world is fully colonized. On that patch, I also played my another campaign, and that was my Denmark into Scandinavia campaign. It was same patch, so same experience. Just regarding the challenge, I wanted to just let you know that, first of all, when I had to fight Poland to get northern Poland and Germany, it was hell, and again, I had to really micromanage nicely around the forts to handle it. And then, second of all, at the end of the game, I tried declaring an alliance between Novgorod and Muscovy, and they had the lands that are not mine, that are in Teutonic Order hands, and Russia, that was in their hands. And I tried that war 3 times. I restarted it 2 times to just try again and again. I got my ass beaten hard in every single of these wars. While owning whole Scandinavia and North Germany coastline. AI was challenging, and I'll tell you why. The fact that the AI is not expanding as much doesn't mean they're not challenging a bit later. Let me go through all the campaigns first and how the AI is evolving. Because the next patch came when I was playing Florence into Tuscany into Italy. Well, here it's worth saying, and I'm gonna clear about this, small tags in EU5 are not too good, meaning that it's really easy to defeat them. They struggle to find allies because they don't have power, and especially in early game, they will not have forts, most of them, right? So declaring, getting levies, you usually get levies faster than them, getting levies fast and sieging locations without even forts, you can piece them out in a few months. EU4 had the same issue, but their OPMs were more often allying each other. So that's a note, that's how united Tuscany, like just very small tags without forts, without allies. It was easy peasy. It only got harder when I started fighting with tags, mid-sized countries, like small mid-sized countries like Genoa, Verona and Milan. I had to sweat and look for occasions to attack them because the biggest problem with the AIs was the alliance chains. Like these tags were usually having 4, 5, 6, 7 alliances that were tough to beat all together. So I had to sweat a lot to find the right opportunities to attack and defeat them and keep expanding. Another big challenge was the 2 Sicilies. And that was the biggest challenge in this campaign for me, because they're similar size to me. They also expanded to Greece, they formed the 2 Sicilies as Naples, and they were in central Italy as well, in the Pope lands. And I had a bit more of standing army that would help me, especially with the sieges, because that standing army wasn't really stronger than the levies. And I had to sweat a lot with focusing and targeting the right battles and right provinces, and again reloading out to save once or twice or thrice to actually win. And the 2 wars with the 2 Sicilies were that hard. Only the 3rd war got a bit easier. I also kept limiting myself with expansion, even though I stacked a lot of antagonists received modifiers. I kept limiting my expansion just to not get coalitioned by the whole South Germany, because I told you from my previous campaign experience that coalition is very aggressive as you expand too much. I didn't expand outside of Italy, so they didn't have a chance to test AIs, bigger AIs outside like Hungary, France, or Austria, Bohemia. And what they fixed on that patch is that forts slider was at half at the minimum, so it was always at least half of the garrison on the forts. So outside of a few situations, I didn't rush the forts as much, like almost at all, only situational rush of the forts. So that was definitely an improvement. That also made the wars a bit longer, more interesting than just assaulting forts all the time or sieging every single fort. And so that made the war definitely more enjoyable. I don't know if it was this or next patch or previous patch, but I think that was this patch. They slowed down the levies reinforcements, so you couldn't just re-recruit them after wiping. And after wiping and dying, they're just recovering in your like reserves of levies, so you could recruit them a bit later. I think it's like 20 or 25 years or 30 years of levies total reinforcement after it dies. And here is where we come with the second to last patch, so October 16th patch, again the patch where we are allowed to start recording our videos for the after embargo, and that was also the patch on which Warner Productions released his time-lapse that came with so many reactions everywhere. So let me talk you through my Ottoman campaign, because that's the video that's gonna release on the 31st October. The levies reinforcement was even slower, so you couldn't like play around with it to get an advantage over nations with similar amount of the levies. It was always an issue. I mean, uniting Anatolia was easy for the rise of the Turks situation. Mamluks were not keeping as many alliances as they did in my previous campaign, so I could rather easily expand in Anatolia. You know, early on if I have to fight Germanians that have like 4 subjects, that was also challenging. I have to micromanage my levies well. The issue was expanding into Balkans, and that's what definitely AI has also struggles with, the Ottoman AI. On one side, you have, after you know unite most of Anatolia, on one side you've got Balkans, so I've got Byzantines there. They usually die and Ottomans usually just grab some stuff from them. Siege of Constantinople took me 1,500 days because of the 4th level. We've got Bulgaria, we've got Serbia, we've got Wallachia, and Europeans often also get into Greece because Naples is already there. They like to expand farther, and sometimes it's also Venice getting there, Genoa, etc. So be sure with Balkans. First of all, AE. Taking a bit of lands, you get not only the Balkans wanting to join the coalition, but often also Hungary, Naples, because they're already there, and what's the worst, the other Orthodox states in like Ruthenian and Russian lands. They all want to join the coalition if expand too much. I learned to go around it by finding out that improving relations decreases the antagonism, which AI for sure doesn't know, and they don't leverage it. That definitely slows the expansion. AE. Then alliance change. Like all these guys, and also guys in Ruthenia, or even Russia sometimes, they all ally each other. 5, 6, 7 nations in one alliance. You want to expand into Naples, same, they will have a few allies, often like Hungary or France even being allied to them. Hack boxes. Hack boxes everywhere, really hard to break. I was doing that by separate piecing, breaking relations between them, and then declaring as soon as the truce ends again, just why they didn't have alliances. That's how I handled it. Really hard to handle by the AI. I think it's impossible for the AI to handle it with the status. On the other side, we've got Jalaririt, so the horde that is having one of the Beyliks as the subjects at the start. So that's a problem. If you want to expand on that Beylik, you have to go for that horde with all of their other subjects. But these guys are like medium powered. AI can handle, but maybe not always. The biggest issue is the Mamluks, which is the strongest nation in Europe, maybe on par with France. They will bring to you 100, 200,000 levies. Impossible to fight. You cannot get that many levies with like whole Anatolia and half of Balkans. As the Ottomans, I had like 50k levies. Impossible to fight. You have to bring standing army as fast as possible, but it's nerfed, so it's hard. And then you have to also just being smart with fighting the battles. So Mamluks, I think they're impossible to beat for the AI Ottomans. They have to give some content to the Ottomans to be able to do that. There's no way Ottomans ever win. AI Ottomans win with AI Mamluks, because Mamluks are also too stable, they're too strong, unbeatable. That's why you will not see Ottomans expanding too much. That's also my problem. So that campaign was super challenging on these 2 fronts for these reasons. You'll not see it on the video, but I had to restart many times, especially on reload, like the save game, on many times, especially on the wars with the Mamluks. This required a lot of reloads. I also had, I think, the most challenging war so far I had in EU5 just yesterday. That will be episode 5 of this campaign. So it's already like 1500s, where I had to fight Mamluks that also had alliances with some Europeans. I had to fight in like 4 different front lines and micromanage it. That was fun as hell, but also very challenging. So, let's get into the conclusion of what I got you so far. Constant civil wars definitely slowed down up until 22nd October patch. They slowed down AIs, but it's fixed. Huge alliance chains is the biggest problem, I think, of the limited AI expansion. The diplo capacity just allows you to do too many allies, and the mid-sized countries use that. You know, big size, like bigger country, the more diplo capacity they take. So there are so huge alliance chains that AIs, they're just smart. They're looking at these alliance chains and like, no, I'm gonna lose. I'm not gonna declare. That's what is happening on these time lapses. I saw a message from one of the devs that's one of the priorities right now. They're trying to resolve this alliance change to reduce the hack boxes. And the fact that they don't declare doesn't mean they don't do anything, which I'm going to show you now on the AI only games that I did. I did 2 observer games on that latest patch from the 22nd October. Let me show you what happened in both. I cannot show game footage, so I of course used Photoshop to draw you borders. So first of all, the game that I think from this 2 looked better. As I nicely drew it, that's the year 1822. So we'll be seeing that Castile, the eyes are a bit more challenging, like more expanding, especially in the first 200 years, then it gets worse in the timeless from the Warder productions, where you see the Castile did nicely, they even ate Portugal, but they never formed Spain because Morocco got lands here, here, and here. Morocco united, and Tunis united regions. We also see like Morocco here, Tunis here, here, and here. So they are also like more opportunistic of grabbing lands. You see France going nicely into Navarre and Aragon, and that's something that they see in almost every AI only game, that they go south and they also go into lowlands. Here they also got even revolutionary France with all of these lands. We've got Great Britain that got most of the islands. Up on the north got Norway that stayed pretty much in its own borders, colonized a bit. Sweden that colonized a bit and got some lands in Denmark. Got Bohemia that united lands from subjects, and they also expanded like Savoy and Italian lands. France is also here, here, and here. I've got Poland that's got a bit north, that's it. Lithuania that expanded more, especially here. Kiev that expanded a little bit. We've got Hungary that expanded quite a lot, especially in the Balkans. So here and here, this is all Hungary. Naples, I'd say that started Naples likes to go into Balkans and Greece. Ottomans, they managed to get Constantinople. They got cock-blocked here by Hungary and Naples. They got cock-blocked by Jalarids here. And Mamluks also getting a bit more. Golden Horde actually forming Yohid Sultanate. And they're huge and survived. A bit of Georgia here. Muscovy expanded quite nicely because they start with this lands. Novgorod start with this land, so they expanded here and here and here. And then we've got Austria that got lands in central Germany. So you see that AIs expand a bit. Then I think first 200 years, they work like it should. They have to improve how it works farther. And let me also read you some statistics from this game, because I was looking at some of these nations. So for example, Poland. Poland that starts with 1 million people in the game, right? They got Black Death like down to 500,000. They had 11 million people in this small Poland. 250,000 manpower in the bank. 10,000 base tax. It's huge. 10,000 base tax is huge. Right now in my Ottoman campaign, in 1540 or something, I have like 1,500, and I am second highest in the game with the base tax. 8,000 income, 5,000 balance, 70,000 regular army. So they seem small in AFK, but they deft out the hell out of these locations. And I'll tell you what, these AIs, like 5 AIs with mid-size, will be more challenging to you than one big AI with all of these lands, because big AI will not be able to get enough control of these lands to get more manpower, base tax and everything. That Poland was either Bohemia, Hungary, Lithuania, Upper Bavaria and Brandenburg. See where I'm going with the reason? The hack boxes. France, 33 million people, 1.1 million manpower, 50,000 ducats in the bag, 18,000 base tax. So you see, France is huge, and they only have 80% more base tax than Poland. 12,000 income, 3k balance, so less balance than Poland, 91,000 regular armies, and then alliances with Bohemia, Ottomans, Trier, and that's it. And then they also colonized a bit because they had Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and North Canada. If you talk about colonization, Great Britain, with the whole British Isles, had 19 million people, 1.3 million manpower, 100k in the bank, 18,000 base tax, so same as France, and again only 80% more than Poland with so much less land. 140,000 regulars, alliances Bohemia, Naples, and Revolutionary France. Ottomans, they seem like a doomer country with like complete shit. They did nothing. 10 million people, yes, in these lands. 600,000 maximum power, 126,000 in the bank, 7,000 base tax. So you see, it's like what, 35-40% of the French base tax. 5,000 income, 46,000 regulars and alliances with Naples, Mamluks, Yochi, as well as France. Muscovy, 11 million people for 2,000 base tax. Castile, 25 million people, number 2 great power. 25,000 base tax, colonies in USA, Caribbean, and Alaska. New Spain and Peru got independent. So you see, these AIs, they play tall as hell. These are extremely tall gameplay. Like that Poland and that Bohemian, that Lithuania, the three of them, they would beat a nation that would own all the lands of the Novgorod, Moscow, and Yochid Sultanate easily, just because of how much base tax you get, with the whole control, and playing tall because you cannot expand with all of the alliance chains. Some worth mentioning outside of Europe tax is Daviet was really big in the Indochina, united a big chunk of it. Got Melayu having the whole western part of Indonesia, and you got huge Korea with whole Korea and whole Manchuria and a bit of Mongolia united with no border. Like that Korea had 31 million people, 16,000 base tax, 12,000 of income. And here it was same observation as this time-lapse games, that Africa got more united, it was looking nicer. What I'm a bit not a fan of, and I think it should be improved, is that Asia tends to border gore so much more than Europe, what you've seen, especially India and especially China. China, what often happens is that there will be one tag uniting it and then collapsing. For example, in the previous patches, before the release patch, there was often that we are ending a game with whole China united by attack. Like for example, I've posted a 2137, so 2.1 million troops screenshot of a Wu. That was AI Wu with whole China united. Now it's usually a border goal of like 20, 30 or even more different tags with terrible looking border gore. Indonesia looks usually better. It's usually united by like the Melayu, usually also Majapahit. In Indochina also usually it's like 2-3 tags. India and China are terrible. Let's look at the second observer game that I've run. Paintings are a bit, you see, turned to the right when they should, just FYI, but that's I think looking alright. So regarding my Asian and African comments, the same. Border gore in China, India, much better in Indonesia. I think most of Indonesia was in Majapahit hands. They almost were able to form Nusantara, which I saw being formed by AI twice. Africa nicely united some regions, like Somalia was having whole Horn, Ajuran was having the whole like East Africa. It was looking nicely, and then like for example West Africa split between Sokoto, Bali, and then some smaller tags. Europe is again, the first 200 years, we see some expansions, then it stops and minimizes to some like local conflicts because of the alliance chains. So you see, you have Great Britain united most of it, there's some just tribe and a county in Ireland. Castile having again eaten Portugal, but Morocco got here and Morocco got here, while Castile got here. Tunis united some region, but also going into, again, like in the previous game, going into Italy. Naples going again a bit here, but not much. Serbia, Bulgaria expanding a bit both, some border gore. Hungary going south, but not like huge amount. Poland, they got a bit here, but north, but nothing crazy. Teutonic Order survived. They also had all of these enclaves. Bohemia actually decided to have ports, and they got a big chunk of Denmark and southern Scandinavia. Munster nicely united. Austria again, besides uniting the region, also got some of South Germany and even North Italy. Ottomans expanded here more, but they were cock-blocked by ethnies that were allied to the Mamluks. Got Georgia that expanded a lot. Golden Horde that survived. Nogai got released out of the Golden Horde, you see on the east. We've got Moscow a bit north. Sometimes you see my mouse, sometimes you don't. Oh, okay. You see Nogai, that's Golden Horde, Smolensk, Kiev, all these guys allied pretty much to each other. Moscow, Novgorod being huge. and Lithuania expanding again just a little bit. So in this game it was more disappointing regarding expansion, which is again more than on pre-22nd October patch, but still first 200 years great, then it slows down. Let's answer the question. Does it mean that AIs do not challenge the player? Does it mean that the game is not fun? It doesn't mean that. They do absolutely challenge the player. I think it's quite the opposite of a lot of people think based on this time lapses. I think the current setup is actually making it more challenging. It's quite the opposite, because the same issues that are driving AIs to expand less are going to also drive the player to expand less. So aggressive expansion and the collisions being very, very aggressive towards the player. Huge alliance chains. And then more AIs, the mid-sized AIs, allied to each other, playing tall. They're gonna be stronger than one big blob. All of these things together, they really do make the game a challenge to the player. But it doesn't mean it is it doesn't mean it's impossible. There are still some aspects of the AI where it could be improved and it's still not perfect, and the player can exploit this to their own advantage. Two more things that I forgot to mention to you, I'm recording that separately after editing the video, is that first of all, in the latest patch they also changed the battles, so they are slower. That's what I mentioned earlier in the video, that the battles were much faster, which made the AI actually more challenging. That should be a bit easier now, we can actually reinforce the battles. And I think one of the other main reasons that I didn't think about earlier, why AIs don't expand as much, especially later, even if they declare the war, is that they limited amount of the war score cost modifiers in game just to nerf the players, but also make the AI struggle, meaning that the more base tax the locations have, the more they'll cost in the peace deal, and the more control they have, they'll cost more in the peace deal. And then the bigger country like you have, like you're an empire, you're gonna get negative war score cost versus lower ranks. So let's say you're France and you're declaring a small country that has a lot of base tax and a lot of control, you're not gonna be able to take many locations. That's also what I had in my Italy campaign, where I was just taking 5-10 locations in the war of Milan in mid game because they had so much base tax in their locations. So I think that's another issue what's probably also limits the expansion of the AIs, even if they decide to declare the war. So AIs should prioritize text for the unit types, because new unit types are usually bigger regiments. So for example, if you go from regiments of size of 500 to 1000, with the same amount of the regiments, you suddenly have twice more armies than your enemy with the same amount of the regiments, but previous units. And you can really exploit it nicely as a player, knowing that you should rush this down to defeat the AIs in the right moments, also rush down their forts faster with the higher amount of the people in your stacks. So AI should be better at targeting these technologies. AI should be also better with, first of all, prioritizing text with the new fort types and more often improving them. They do improve the forts quite a lot, but they often lag behind. And often when you move to that new unit type that doubles your amount of the troops, the old forts are just easily rushable. So mid game for the player, where the standing army is important, you know what the advances to take, you can leverage that to actually make your game easier versus the AIs, and the AI should do a better job at doing so. Just a reminder, in EU4, up until patch 1.34 or 35, AIs were not improving forts at all. They were staying at forts level 2, pretty much most of them, until the end of the game. They fixed that just a few patches ago in EU4. I hope they're gonna go towards this direction also in EU5. AI should also embrace the standing armies faster, especially that they are very rich, they have a lot of money. They have money, and they have to spend it on more armories and building more of their armies to be at the limit of their force limit. This way it is gonna be even more challenging for the player, and the players will have to really think of how to beat them. Right now it can be leveraged by fasting embracing the standing armies. So in the mid game you'll be having that moment where you'll be able to leverage that. The unit types having all standing army versus only levies. That there will be times in mid-game that will be easy for you. The small AIs, I think they're not also good enough. Like they did like 2-3 location minors. They don't have forts. They levies like come, I don't know, they're usually delayed like a week or two compared to your levies. So I think they should make some kind of like modifier to like counties and duchies that the levies appear faster, so they have a chance to at least pose any challenge, and they would should do a better job of grabbing alliances. Mid-sized countries should grab less alliances, small-sized countries should grab a bit more alliances, at least between each other. Another issue is that AIs learned nicely how to use transport ships to keep landing, naval landing. They're really good at it, but they do it with transports only, which are often levies navy. Which means, if you know that, and you wipe them, you wipe all the armies on that ship stack. This way I've killed like 100k of Naples army on my Ottoman camp because I kept wiping their transport ships. The AI should do better job at this. So yeah, this is it. This is my full opinion on the AI. So in a nutshell, if you just skip to the end of the video to see the summary, should AI do a better job expanding? Absolutely yes. Past 1550. First 200 years I think that it's good. Does it mean the game is not fun? It doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean the AI is not posing a challenge to the player. It's quite the opposite. Because of the same issues for the AIs not to expand, the player will also have a harder job to expand. So for example, if they make tweaks soon in the next patch, and they make the alliances being smaller, and the AI is more aggressive to expand, this will most likely make the game easier for the player. Because there will be less hack boxes, and more big nations with less control of the lands that they conquer. But this is it. For my knowledge, on Wednesday there's gonna be another patch released with another plenty of tweaks. I know that Paradox cares a lot about your guys' feedback, and they definitely saw the feedback about the whole comments of nothing ever happens. It happens for the first 200 years, then not really, but it doesn't make your experience worse. And you'll see soon on the 31st October how it looks for me, because I started that campaign on the 16th October patch, so you'll be able to see me start the campaign on that patch, and then I already have 2 episodes on the newer patch, and I might even continue it further. We'll see how the game will go for me as the Ottomans. But today guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you agree with my opinion. If you don't, I bet you a lot if you don't agree with me. I understand that, and I'm gonna see you very, very soon. Bye.